Alright, so let's make some loading screens. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to need the actual UI, so I'm going to make that really fast. Okay, so we have our UI. Now I'm just going to put that into replicated first, and I'm going to insert a local script into replicated first so we can start giving it some functionality. I'm going to call it load since we're just loading the game. Now we're going to need a few services for this first loading screen. So we're going to need the content provider service. We're going to need the replicated first service, the tween service, the player service, and also the run service. So I'm going to get those real fast. So I have all of those. Now I need the loading screen, so I'm going to get that. Now I'm going to make a code block. If you don't know what a code block is, it's just you type in do and hit enter and you get a code block. So what this code block is going to contain is I'm going to have the local player, so I'm going to get that real fast. Player equals local player. And I'm going to, this is where I'm going to have the animation function for our icon, and it's going to be in a coroutine, so it's running while everything else is loading. So in this function, I'm going to call it load tween since it's a tween. In this load tween, I need the icon, and I'm also going to need the load info, which is going to be the tween info for our tween. We're also going to need to hold a reference of the current tween so we can destroy the current tween once it's ended and then create new ones. And now we're going to have a while loop for this coroutine, and it's going to run as long as the loading screen exists. So once we destroy the loading screen, then this coroutine will end. But in this while loop, so I'm going to say while loading screen. In this while loop, we're going to check if the current tween exists. If it doesn't exist, we are going to create a new tween. So in this, we create the new tween and then we play it. And then if we do have a current tween, we're going to check if that current tween's playback state is equal to the completed playback state. And if it's completed, then we destroy that tween since it's already completed with, and we start it all over. So we create the current tween, we create a new tween for the current tween variable, and we play it. So that is that for that while loop, and then at the end of this do block, we're going to parent the loading screen to our player, and then we are going to spawn the load tween function. And that is it for the do block. Also, one thing I forgot, in this while loop, if you don't have this, your while loop will run too fast. So we need a rs.heartbeat wait. And what this does, it'll just wait for the next frame, and once we have the next frame, it'll run this. So that is it for this do block. Now, after this do block, we're going to remove the default loading screen with the replicated first service. And then afterwards, we're going to check if the game is loaded. And if not, we'll just wait for the game to load. And this last bit of code will be for the content. So after the replication snapshot, if you didn't watch my video on the replication queue, a brief little summary of it is the server sends a replication snapshot of whatever's in Studio before you play the game, and that stuff gets replicated to the client first, right after the game is loaded. So we want to get all of those instances, and we're going to preload any of the content that any of those instances contain. So let's say a decal was stored in the replication snapshot. We want to preload whatever image or texture was on that decal, so we don't have any preloading while we're playing the game. So after all of that, after all of it's preloaded, then we'll just wait for 2 seconds just to give the loading screen some smooth loading time, and then we will destroy the loading screen and we will set it to nil so the coroutine terminates. So if we run this, we can see that it all works, and you can see this nice little animation, which is pretty nice. Nice little animation, and then you load in. So that is the first. Okay, so the next loading screen we're going to have is a circle progress bar. So I'm going to make a new UI for that real fast. Okay, so we have our second loading screen. It's just a background with a loading circle in the middle. And we're going to, again, insert a local script. I'm going to call it load again. And for this one, we will need a few services as well. For the circle loader, we will need the content provider service, like last time, also replicated first, the player service, and the run service. So let's get those. We'll also need the loading screen, so let's get that. Now, this do block will be the same as the first do block in terms of formatting, like with the load tween coroutine and spawning it with the while loop. But this while loop will be a lot different. Also, like last time, we're going to remove the default loading screen and check if the game is loaded and wait for the game to load. And once again, also like the last time, we will have the content as the descendants of the game, preload it, wait 2 seconds, and destroy. That is it for the circle. Once we hit play, we should see how that turns out. Nice little loading circle there for you. and boom, we're in. Now this last this last loading screen is a little bit more it's a little bit more nuanced. There's two versions scripting wise. One is for smaller games and the other is for larger games with a lot more content. So I'm going to do both of those. The first one I'm going to do is the smaller one. So first I'm going to get a new UI. Okay, so I have this new loading screen for the progress bar. So I'm going to put this into replicated first. And once again, like the others, I'm going to insert a local script called load. And we're going to get these same services as most. We're going to get the content provider. We're going to get the replicated first, and we're also going to need the players service. So let's get those. As usual, we're going to need a reference to the loading screen, so let's get that. Now we're also going to need the progress bar and the text, so I'm going to reference those as well. And then after all of that, I'm going to parent the loading screen to the local player's player UI. And then we're going to remove the default loading screen and also wait for the game to load. Now, I'm also going to need a table holding all of the content. Now, for the short version, all I need to do is get all of the game instances and make a loop through those game instances and preload them individually. So that's what I'm going to do for the short one. Now, for the progress bar, I'm going to need to keep track of how many instances I have completed. So I'm going to make a local variable for that called loaded content count. And every time we loop through, we're going to increment that by 1. And then we're going to update the UI. So for the progress bar, we're going to get the percentage of the loaded content count out of the total content. And then for the progress text, we're just going to edit the text and say this loaded content count out of this total number of content instances. And once we preload everything, once again, we'll just wait for 2 or 3 seconds and then destroy the UI and set it to no. So this is what that is going to look like. Once again, this is for smaller games, so keep that in mind. This is what that looks like. Once again, loads very fast, small games. And then you pop in. Okay, so for the larger games with a lot more content, this will not work because trying to load in every game descendant of your huge game will make your loading screen take forever, and we don't want that. So in order to combat this, I'm going to remove this for loop, and instead of the content being all of the game descendants, it's going to be an empty table. And we're going to need a new table of all the instances which have content in them. So decals, mesh parts, etc. And I'm going to call this content instances. And for each key, it's going to be the class name of that instance. And for the value, it's going to be a function returning whether or not this content table contains the content string of that instance. So here's what that looks like. Okay, so now we have every single content instance I can think of. If you have more, then you can just add those in, but these are all of the ones off the top of my head. So now we need a new function that checks whether every instance from the game, from the descendants of the game, we need to check if that is a content instance or not. So this function looks like so. Next, we're going to loop through every game descendant, and we're going to check if it is a content instance. If it is, then we'll check if the content table already has the content from that instance. And if it doesn't, then we'll insert the new content string into that table. So here's what that looks like. And finally, we're going to loop through each string in the content table, and we're going to preload it just like we did in the one for the smaller games. So here's what that looks like. And then once again we wait for 3 seconds, then we destroy the GUI and then set it to nil. So for this one, since it's just an empty base plate, it's going to be like probably less than 100 pieces of content, and it'll load really fast. Oh, it's only 6. So there's that. And like I said, this is for bigger games who which have a lot of content and trying to do every single game descendant, even when those descendants don't have content, will make your game take very long to load. So this is definitely the better way if you have a lot of content in your game. Yeah, so that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and hope you guys can use this in your games. See you later.